The worst moment of my life happened on a Tuesday afternoon at 2:47 p.m., and I know the exact time because I checked my phone approximately 17 times in the 60 seconds before my entire world imploded. My name is Adrian Chen, I'm 24 years old, and I had just committed the cardinal sin of modern existence. I said something deeply personal about someone while that someone was standing directly behind me, but this wasn't just any embarrassing slip-up. This was me, essentially confessing my feelings for my best friend Marcus to our mutual friend Sophia, while Marcus himself was apparently within perfect earshot. Let me back up. I've known Marcus Reeves for exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Yes, I've been counting. We met during our first week of grad school at Northwestern, both of us in the media communications program, both of us completely overwhelmed by Chicago's brutal winter and the terrifying realization that we'd signed up for 2 more years of academic torture after already surviving 4 years of undergrad. Marcus had sat down next to me in our media ethics seminar, dropped his overstuffed messenger bag with a theatrical sigh, and said, "Please tell me you also have no idea what semiotics means and that I'm not the only one who's going to fail this class." I'd actually laughed for the first time since moving to a city where I knew absolutely no one. I thought it had something to do with signs. "See, that's already more than I know," he'd grinned, and that was it. That was the moment Marcus Reeves became my person. Over the next 3 years, we became inseparable. We studied together, complained about professors together, binge-watched terrible reality TV together while eating Chinese takeout at 2 a.m. Marcus was there when my grandmother died during our first year. I was there when he bombed his thesis presentation and thought about dropping out. We'd celebrated each other's successes, mourned each other's failures, and built the kind of friendship that people write songs about. There was just one tiny, insignificant, soul-crushing problem. Sometime during year 2, I'd fallen completely, devastatingly, hopelessly in love with him. And Marcus was very, very straight. Or at least I'd convinced myself he was. He'd had a girlfriend briefly during our second year, a perfectly nice woman named Jessica who worked in marketing. They dated for about 4 months before mutually deciding they were better as friends. Since then, Marcus had been single, but he'd occasionally mention women he found attractive or comment on actresses in movies we watched. Nothing that screamed, "I'm interested in men," and certainly nothing that screamed, "I'm interested in you, Adrian." I, on the other hand, had been out since my sophomore year of college. My parents had been, well, accepting might be generous, but they'd eventually come around to a sort of cold tolerance. We didn't talk about it, they didn't ask about my dating life, I didn't volunteer information, it was a peaceful if lonely détente. Marcus knew I was gay. Of course he knew, I'd never hidden it from him and he'd never seemed bothered by it. In fact, he was probably the most genuinely supportive person in my life. When I'd nervously mentioned going on a date with a guy I'd met on an app during our second year, Marcus had been enthusiastic, asking questions, wanting to know how it went. When the date had been a disaster, the guy had spent 45 minutes talking about his ex, Marcus had bought me ice cream and let me vent. He was perfect, supportive, kind, funny, smart, and completely unavailable. I'd been doing a pretty good job of keeping my feelings locked down. I'd dated other people casually, nothing serious, and I'd convinced myself that this pathetic crush would eventually fade. Hearts heal, feelings change, life goes on, and all those other lies we tell ourselves. Then came that Tuesday afternoon. Sophia Martinez was my other close friend in our program. She was brilliant, blunt, and had absolutely zero filter, which was both her greatest strength and her most dangerous quality. Sophia had figured out my feelings for Marcus approximately 10 minutes after meeting us both. She'd pulled me aside at a house party during our first semester and said, "You're in love with him, aren't you?" I'd sputtered, denied, deflected, and eventually, 3 glasses of wine later, admitted the truth. Since then, Sophia had been both my confidant and my tormentor. She'd listened to me agonize over every small interaction with Marcus, offer advice that ranged from just tell him to get over it and date someone else, and occasionally threatened to tell Marcus herself if I didn't stop being such a coward. I'd made her promise, repeatedly, that she would never, ever breathe a word of this to him. On that particular Tuesday, we were supposed to be meeting for coffee to work on our respective thesis projects. We'd claimed a corner table at the Grind, our usual spot near campus, a hipster coffee shop with exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, and the kind of aggressively aromatic espresso that either woke you up or made you incredibly anxious. Usually both. Marcus had texted earlier saying he'd be late, some meeting with his advisor had run long. So it was just Sophia and me, laptops open, ostensibly working but actually procrastinating hard. So, Sophia had said, looking up from her screen with that dangerous glint in her eye that meant she was about to cause trouble. How much longer are you going to keep torturing yourself? I'm not torturing myself, I'm working on my thesis. You've typed the same sentence 4 times and deleted it 3 times. That's not working, that's having a crisis. I'd glanced at my screen, she was right. The cursor had been blinking mockingly at me for the past 20 minutes. I'm just distracted, I'd said. By Marcus. By my thesis. Liar. I'd sighed, closing my laptop with more force than necessary. Can we not do this today? We do this every day, Adrian, you pine. I tell you to do something about it, you refuse, we repeat. It's like Groundhog Day but more pathetic. Thank you for your support in this difficult time. Sophia had leaned forward, her expression softening slightly. Look, I love you, but watching you suffer like this is exhausting. You're miserable, he's single. The worst that happens if you tell him is that he says he's not interested and you can finally move on. The worst that happens is that I ruin the most important friendship in my life, I'd countered. Marcus he's everything, Soph. If I tell him and it goes badly, I lose him. I can't lose him. You don't know that. He's straight. You don't know that either. He dated Jessica. Bisexual people exist, Adrian, and also that relationship lasted about as long as a carton of milk. I'd run my hands through my hair, a nervous habit I'd developed specifically for conversations about Marcus. Even if, and that's a huge if, even if he's not straight, that doesn't mean he's interested in me, and risking our friendship on a maybe, that's insane. You know what's insane? Sophia had said, her voice rising slightly. Spending the next however many years pretending you don't feel what you feel, watching him maybe eventually date someone else, fall in love with someone else while you're stuck here with all these feelings and nowhere to put them. That had hit harder than I wanted to admit. I'd been quiet for a moment, staring at my coffee cup. I can't, I'd said finally, my voice quieter. I can't risk it, he's too important. Sophia had looked at me with something like pity, which somehow felt worse than her usual exasperation. You're in love with him, she'd said, not a question but a statement of fact. And this was where everything went catastrophically wrong. Because in that moment, overwhelmed by months of suppressed feelings, exhausted from pretending, and safe in what I thought was a private conversation with my best friend, I'd let my guard down completely. Of course I'm in love with him, I'd said, louder than I'd intended, my voice carrying that particular quality of frustrated anguish that comes from keeping a secret too long. I'm completely, pathetically in love with Marcus. I think about him constantly. I notice everything, the way he drinks his coffee, how he drums his fingers when he's thinking, that specific laugh he does when something genuinely surprises him. I've memorized the way he says my name. I have, entire fantasies about what it would be like to just reach across the couch when we're watching TV and hold his hand. It's embarrassing and hopeless and I hate it, but I can't stop. So yes, Sophia, I'm in love with my straight best friend and it's destroying me, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. Yeah. I'd finished this declaration, breathing hard, feeling simultaneously relieved to have said it out loud and mortified at my own vulnerability. Sophia's face had gone completely pale. Her eyes had widened, looking at something just over my shoulder. And in that horrible, slow-motion moment of realization, I'd understood. Someone was behind me. Please, I'd thought desperately, let it be literally anyone else. A stranger, the barista, the guy who always sat in the corner doing extremely loud phone calls, anyone. I turned around. Marcus was standing there, maybe 5 feet away, his messenger bag still on his shoulder, his jacket half unzipped. His expression was, I couldn't read it, shocked, confused, horrified, all of the above. Our eyes met. Neither of us said anything. The coffee shop noise, the hiss of the espresso machine, the chatter of other customers, the indie folk music playing overhead, all of it seemed impossibly loud and simultaneously far away. I don't know how long we stood there, frozen. It felt like hours, it was probably seconds. Then Marcus said, his voice strange and tight, I'm going to go. And he turned and walked out of the coffee shop. I'd sat there completely paralyzed, watching him disappear onto the street through the large front windows. Oh my God, Sophia had whispered, Adrian, I'm so But I hadn't heard the rest because I was already grabbing my stuff, shoving my laptop into my bag, and running for the door. I burst out onto the street, my laptop bag banging painfully against my hip, my coffee-stained jacket still half on. The Chicago afternoon was typical for late March, gray, cold, with that particular dampness that suggested rain without actually committing to it. Marcus was already half a block away, walking fast, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. "Marcus," I shouted, dodging around a woman with a stroller. "Marcus, wait." He didn't stop, if anything, he walked faster. I ran after him, my messenger bag bouncing awkwardly, drawing stares from other pedestrians. "Please, please just let me explain." That apparently was enough to make him stop. He turned around in the middle of the sidewalk and other pedestrians flowed around us like water around stones. Up close I could see his face clearly. His eyes were wide, his jaw tight, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite identify. Anger, hurt, betrayal. "Explain what exactly," he said, and his voice had an edge I'd never heard before. I'd reached him, slightly out of breath, and suddenly had no idea what to say. All those words that had poured out of me in the coffee shop had evaporated. I started, then stopped. "It's not." "Were you lying?" he asked. "In there just now, were you lying to Sophia?" I could have done it. I could have laughed it off, claimed it was some kind of joke or exaggeration or misunderstanding. I could have saved the friendship, even if it meant swallowing everything I actually felt. But I was so tired of lying. "No," I said quietly, "I wasn't lying." Marcus flinched like I'd hit him. He looked away, staring at the traffic rushing past us on the street. "How long?" he asked. "What? How long have you?" He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. "How long? Does it matter?" "Yes," he said forcefully, looking back at me. "It matters. How long, Adrian?" I swallowed hard. "Over a year, maybe closer to 2. 2 years, he repeated like he was testing the weight of the words. "You felt this way for 2 years and you never said anything." Of course I didn't say anything. "Marcus, you're my best friend, you're the most important person in my life." I wasn't going to ruin that by telling me the truth. By making everything weird and uncomfortable. By putting you in an impossible position where you'd have to let me down gently and then we'd have to pretend everything was fine when it clearly wouldn't be. So instead you just, pretended this whole time. I didn't have a choice. "You always have a choice," Marcus said, his voice rising. "You could have talked to me, you could have trusted me with this." "And what would you have said?" I shot back. "Would you have suddenly reciprocated? Would it have changed anything?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked frustrated, angry, and something else I still couldn't identify. "I don't know," he said finally. That stopped me cold. "You don't know." "I don't." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that mirrored my own nervous habit. "I need to think. I can't do this right now." "Marcus. I need space, Adrian, please." The please was what broke me. Marcus never asked for space. We'd spent countless hours together, often in comfortable silence, never needing breaks from each other. The fact that he was asking for space now meant I'd damaged something fundamental. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Okay." He nodded, not quite meeting my eyes, and turned to walk away. I stood on that sidewalk for a long time after he disappeared into the crowd, feeling the cold seep through my jacket, watching the city move around me like I wasn't even there. The next 72 hours were the longest of my life. Marcus didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't respond to my messages, and yes, I sent messages because I'm weak and desperate and apparently have no sense of self-preservation. The first text I sent that evening, around 7 p.m. "I'm sorry, I know you need space, but I'm sorry for not telling you, for making things weird, for everything." No response. The next morning, pathetic and caffeinated. "Can we talk, even just for 5 minutes, I miss you." No response. That afternoon, bargaining. "I understand if you need time, just let me know you're okay." No response. By Thursday evening I was spiraling. I'd skipped all my classes, hadn't showered, and had subsisted entirely on anxiety and cereal eaten directly from the box. My apartment, A modest studio in a building that generously described itself as vintage but really meant old and slightly falling apart had become a cave of self-pity. Sophia had texted me approximately 47 times, alternating between apologies and demands that I respond to confirm I was still alive. I'd finally sent her a message on Wednesday. Me alive, not okay, need to be alone. She'd respected that mostly, though she'd still sent periodic check-ins disguised as memes. On Friday afternoon, I was lying on my couch, staring at the ceiling when my phone finally buzzed with a message from Marcus. My heart immediately started racing. I grabbed the phone so fast I nearly dropped it. "Marcus, can you meet me tonight, 7 p.m. at the park near campus?" I stared at the message, trying to decode it. The park was where we'd gone dozens of times, sometimes to study, sometimes just to walk and talk. Was that significant? Was he choosing a public place to let me down easy? Was he going to tell me he never wanted to see me again? I'll be there. The next 3 hours were torture. I showered, changed clothes 4 times, rehearsed approximately 17 different speeches, and then abandoned all of them because everything I thought to say sounded either too desperate or too casual. At 6:45, I left my apartment and walked to the park. It was one of those early spring evenings where winter was finally loosening its grip on Chicago. The air was cool but not bitter, and there was actual sunlight breaking through the clouds. Students were scattered across the grass, studying or playing frisbee or just soaking up the relative warmth. I found our usual bench situated under a large oak tree with a view of the pond where ducks congregated to harass people for food. Marcus wasn't there yet. I sat down, my leg bouncing nervously, checking my phone every 30 seconds. At exactly 7:02 p.m., I saw him walking across the grass toward me. My breath caught. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well either. He was wearing his Northwestern hoodie and jeans, his hands in his pockets, his expression carefully neutral. He sat down on the bench, leaving a careful gap of space between us. That gap felt like a canyon. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Marcus said, "I've been thinking." "Okay," I said, my voice embarrassingly shaky. "About what you said about everything." "Marcus, Let me finish," he said gently, "please." I nodded, pressing my lips together. Marcus took a deep breath. "When I heard you in the coffee shop, my first reaction was shock, obviously, but then I felt angry, which didn't make sense to me at first. Why would I be angry that you have feelings for me? That's not something you can control." I waited, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "But I realized I wasn't angry about your feelings," Marcus continued. "I was angry that you didn't trust me enough to tell me that you've been carrying this alone for 2 years while I've been completely oblivious." "I was trying to protect our friendship," I said quietly. "I know, but Adrian, friendship requires honesty, and by hiding this you were deciding for both of us how this would go. You decided I couldn't handle it, that I'd reject you, that everything would fall apart. You didn't give me a chance to actually respond." He was right, and it hurt to hear. I was scared. "I know," Marcus said, his voice softer, "but here's the thing I realized over the past few days: I've been scared too." I looked at him sharply. "What?" Marcus turned to face me fully, and in his eyes I saw something I'd never allowed myself to hope for: vulnerability, uncertainty, and something that might have been longing. "I've been scared," he said slowly, "because I've been having feelings I didn't know how to process, feelings about you." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "What are you saying?" I whispered. Marcus laughed, but it sounded slightly desperate. "I'm saying that I've been an idiot. I'm saying that when you told Sophia you'd memorized the way I say your name, all I could think was that I've memorized things about you too. The way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating. How you always order the same coffee but pretend you're considering other options. The fact that you can't watch sad movies without crying, even if you claim you're not crying, you just have allergies." I was staring at him, unable to process what I was hearing. "I thought about all the times I've wanted to," he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "When we watch TV and you fall asleep on the couch, I always want to let you sleep there, on me. I actively think about it. I think about what it would be like to just touch you, your hair, your hand, whatever. And I've been telling myself it's normal, that it's just friendship, that I'm just comfortable with you." "Marcus, let me finish," he said again, and I could see his hands were shaking slightly. Jessica and I broke up because she said I was emotionally unavailable. She said I was clearly more invested in my friendship with you than I was in dating her. I thought she was wrong, but I don't think she was wrong. My throat was so tight I could barely breathe. I'm not sure what I am, Marcus continued. I've never really thought about it before because I've never felt. I dated Jessica, but it was easy and comfortable and ultimately not very deep. But with you, it's different. Everything's different. You're the person I want to tell when something good happens. You're the person I think about when I'm stressed. You're the first person I thought about when I heard you say all those things in the coffee shop. What did you think? I managed to ask. Marcus looked at me, really looked at me, and the expression on his face was so open, so unguarded that it took my breath away. I thought, he said quietly, that I might feel the same way. The world stopped. I opened my mouth but no words came out. I'm not saying I have everything figured out, Marcus said quickly. I don't know what this means about my sexuality or what labels fit or any of that. All I know is that you're important to me in a way that goes beyond friendship, and hearing you say all those things made me realize I've been hiding from that. I had to clear my throat, you have feelings for me. Yeah, Marcus said, and he laughed, sounding slightly amazed. Yeah, I think I do. You think? I know, he corrected. I know I do, I'm scared too, Adrian. I'm scared of messing this up, of not being what you need, of not knowing how to do this. Without fully deciding to do it, I reached across the gap between us and took his hand. Marcus looked down at our joined hands and then back up at me and smiled, that real, genuine smile that I'd memorized over the past 3 years. We can figure it out together, I said. Yes. Yeah. We sat there on that bench holding hands as the sun continued to set and the park began to empty around us. Neither of us spoke for a while and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Finally Marcus said, "So what happens now?" I smiled. I have no idea. That's terrifying. Completely terrifying, I agreed, but Also, Marcus prompted. I squeezed his hand, also kind of perfect. The thing nobody tells you about confessing your feelings to your best friend and having those feelings reciprocated is that it doesn't actually solve anything. If anything, it creates an entirely new set of problems wrapped in excitement and terror. Marcus and I left the park that evening still holding hands, both of us slightly dazed, neither of us entirely sure what we were doing. We walked in the general direction of my apartment, our usual comfortable conversation replaced by charged silence and nervous smiles. At my building entrance we stopped. "Do you want to come up?" I asked, then immediately panicked. "Not like just to talk or watch TV or not talk, we could just sit there, or not, you could go home, that's also fine." Marcus was grinning at me. "You're rambling." "I'm terrified." "I know, me too," he squeezed my hand. "I should probably go home, process all this, sleep, maybe have a minor crisis." "Sounds healthy. We can talk tomorrow." "I'd like that." There was an awkward moment where neither of us knew how to say goodbye. A hug, a kiss, a formal handshake. We'd hugged hundreds of times before, but somehow this felt different. Marcus solved the problem by pulling me into a hug that lasted several seconds longer than a normal friendly hug. I could feel his heartbeat, fast and nervous, matching my own. "Good night, Adrian," he said quietly, his breath warm against my ear. "Good night." He pulled back, gave me one more smile, and walked away. I floated up to my apartment, called Sophia immediately, and spent 2 hours recounting every single detail of the conversation while she alternated between screaming with excitement and demanding to know what happens next. "I don't know what happens next," I told her for the 5th time. "You're going to date him, obviously." "Are we? We didn't actually establish that." "Adrian, he said he has feelings for you. You've been in love with him for 2 years. The math is simple." "Nothing about this is simple, Soph. He's never dated a guy before, he's still figuring out his sexuality. We could try this and completely ruin the friendship." "Or," Sophia countered, "you could try this and it could be amazing. Stop catastrophizing." "Catastrophizing is my primary skill." "Your primary skill is being an idiot. I say this with love." After we hung up, I lay in bed, too wired to sleep, replaying every moment of the evening. Marcus's words echoed in my head. I might feel the same way. No, he'd corrected himself. I know I do. I must have eventually fallen asleep because I woke up Saturday morning to sunlight streaming through my windows and 3 texts from Marcus. Marcus, good morning, I didn't sleep much. Marcus, kept thinking about yesterday. Marcus, coffee today, we should probably talk about everything. I responded immediately. Me the grind, 11. Marcus, perfect, see you there. Walking into the grind that morning felt surreal. The last time I'd been here, I'd accidentally confessed my feelings to the entire coffee shop and potentially ruined my life. Now I was walking back in to have a what are we conversation with the person I'd been secretly in love with. The universe had a weird sense of humor. Marcus was already there at a different table this time, probably deliberately avoiding the scene of the crime. He had 2 coffee cups in front of him and waved when he saw me. I slid into the seat across from him and he pushed one of the cups toward me. Your usual, he said, vanilla latte, extra vanilla, no whip. The fact that he knew my exact coffee order, had always known it, suddenly felt impossibly significant. Thanks, I said, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. We sat in slightly awkward silence for a moment. So Marcus started. So I echoed. He laughed, this is weird, right? We're being weird. Incredibly weird, we're usually not weird. We're usually very not weird, he paused, although I guess we have been weird for a while and I just didn't realize it. What do you mean? Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying me. I've been thinking about a lot of things since Thursday, moments that maybe meant more than I realized at the time. Like what? Like last month when we went to that movie and you fell asleep on my shoulder. You do that sometimes, fall asleep during movies, but this time I remember being very aware of it. Of you, I didn't want to move because I didn't want to wake you up obviously, but also, I liked it, you being that close. My heart was already racing and he'd barely started talking. Or that time we were studying for finals, Marcus continued, and it was like 3 in the morning and we were both exhausted and slightly delirious and you started laughing at something stupid I said. I couldn't stop watching you laugh. I remember thinking you had the best laugh I'd ever heard and then being confused about why I was thinking that. I didn't know, I said softly. How could you? I didn't know either, or I did, but I wasn't letting myself know, if that makes sense. He ran his hand through his hair. I've been doing a lot of research. Research? About sexuality, compulsory heterosexuality, bisexuality, just trying to understand what I'm feeling. And what are you feeling? Marcus met my eyes. Honestly, scared, confused, but also kind of excited. I spent so long just assuming I was straight because that's the default, you know. I dated Jessica because that's what you do. You meet a nice woman, you date her, you see where it goes. But it never felt like what people describe, that all-consuming attraction, that need to be around someone constantly. And now, I asked, barely breathing. Now I think maybe I've been feeling that way about you for a while and I just didn't have the framework to understand it. He paused. Do you remember when Jessica and I broke up? Of course. Do you remember what you said to me? I thought back, it had been last fall, maybe 6 months ago. Marcus had seemed relieved more than heartbroken and I'd tried to be supportive while privately being thrilled he was single again. I think I said that the right person would come along eventually. You said, Marcus corrected gently, you deserve someone who makes you feel like you can't imagine your life without them. Someone who you want to tell everything to, who makes ordinary moments feel special. Okay. Adrian, you described yourself, that's how I feel about you, that's how I've felt for a long time. I had to set my coffee down because my hands were shaking. So what does this mean? I asked. What do you want this to be? Marcus reached across the table and took my hand, right there in the middle of the coffee shop where anyone could see. I want to try, he said. I want us to try being more than friends together if you want that too. If I want, I laughed slightly hysterically. Marcus, I've wanted that for 2 years. But do you want it now, knowing that I'm still figuring things out, that I might be bad at this, that I've never dated a guy before and I'll probably mess up? I squeezed his hand. I want to try, even with all that, especially with all that. Marcus smiled, that brilliant smile that I'd memorized, and suddenly the weirdness evaporated. We were still us, still Adrian and Marcus, still best friends, just with this new element that had always been there under the surface finally acknowledged. So we're doing this, Marcus asked. We're doing this. Do we tell people? I hesitated. Do you want to? I want to tell Sophia immediately so she stops texting me asking if I've made my move yet. I laughed. She's been texting you. For 3 days, she's relentless. She means well. She's terrifying, Marcus said, but he was smiling. But yeah, we can tell people. I mean, I'm not planning to announce it to my family right away. I need to figure out how to explain this to my parents, but our friends, yeah. Our friends, the people who'd watched us be inseparable for years and would probably be entirely unsurprised by this development. One step at a time, I said. One step at a time, Marcus agreed. We stayed at that coffee shop for another hour talking about everything and nothing. The conversation flowed like it always had, but now there was this additional current underneath, the awareness that we were holding hands, that this was a date, that we were tentatively, terrifyingly, building something new on the foundation of what we already had. When we finally left, Marcus walked me back to my apartment again. At the entrance, we had that same awkward moment of not knowing how to say goodbye. Can I kiss you? Marcus asked suddenly. My brain short-circuited. What? Can I kiss you? He repeated, looking nervous but determined. I've been thinking about it all morning and I want to know what it's like. Yes, I said, probably too quickly. Yes, you can definitely kiss me. Marcus stepped closer, still holding my hand, and I could see him working up the courage. He was nervous. I could see it in the way he was breathing, the slight tremor in his hands. I've never done this before, he said quietly, with a guy. It's just a kiss, I said, trying to sound reassuring despite my own racing heart. Same mechanics as kissing anyone else. But it's not anyone else, it's you. And then he closed the distance between us and pressed his lips to mine. It was gentle, tentative, sweet, the kind of first kiss that's more about intention than technique. His lips were soft and he tasted like coffee, and his hand came up to cup my cheek with a tenderness that made my chest ache. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like everything. When we pulled apart, Marcus was smiling, his eyes bright. Okay, he said. Okay, yeah, that was good. Just good, I teased, trying to ignore how fast my heart was beating. Amazing, Marcus corrected. That was amazing, can we do it again? I laughed and pulled him back for another kiss, this one less tentative, more certain. His arms went around my waist and I tangled my fingers in his hair, and for those few moments everything else disappeared. When we finally broke apart again, we were both grinning like idiots. I should probably go, Marcus said, sounding reluctant. Probably. Neither of us moved. I have homework, Marcus added. Very important homework. Critical homework. You should definitely go do that homework. I will, Marcus said, not moving, in a minute. He kissed me one more time, quick and sweet, and then forced himself to step back. Tomorrow. Continue. 22:31. He asked. Tomorrow, I confirmed. I watched him walk away, and this time when he turned back to wave, I could wave back with the knowledge that this wasn't ending, it was just beginning. The next few weeks were a masterclass in navigating uncharted territory while trying not to crash and burn spectacularly. Dating your best friend, I discovered, was both easier and harder than dating a stranger. Easier because we already knew each other completely. There was no awkward getting-to-know-you phase, no dancing around topics, no pretending to be cooler or more interesting than we actually were. We'd already seen each other at our worst, sick, stressed, crying over failed exams, hangry at midnight. But it was harder because every new romantic element had to be negotiated carefully. We had 3 years of friendship habits to navigate around, plus Marcus's journey of figuring out his sexuality in real time. Our first official date was the following weekend. Marcus had insisted on planning it, which meant I spent 3 days nervously wondering what he had in mind and whether I was supposed to dress up or dress down or just set all my clothes on fire and start over. He'd been characteristically mysterious, only telling me to dress warm and be ready by 6 p.m. When Marcus showed up at my apartment that Saturday evening, he was wearing jeans and his favorite green jacket, looking nervous and excited in equal measure. Ready? He asked. For what? It's a surprise. I hate surprises. No, you don't, you just hate bad surprises. This is a good surprise. He drove us. Marcus had a car, an ancient Honda that he'd inherited from his older brother and which made concerning noises but somehow kept running, to Navy Pier. "The pier?" I asked as we parked. "The pier," Marcus confirmed, looking pleased with himself, "specifically the Ferris wheel." I stared at him. "You want to go on the Ferris wheel?" "I want to take you on the Ferris wheel for our first official date. It's romantic, right?" I googled romantic first date ideas in Chicago. My heart melted approximately 16 times. "You googled romantic date ideas?" "I've never taken a guy on a date before," Marcus said defensively. "I wanted to do it right. The internet suggested the Ferris wheel, also a nice dinner, but we can do that after." The Navy Pier Ferris wheel was tacky and touristy and absolutely perfect. We waited in line with families and couples, Marcus's hand finding mine naturally, and I couldn't stop smiling. When we finally got into our gondola, which was thankfully empty except for us, and started rising above the city, Marcus turned to me with a nervous expression. "So," he asked, "is this okay as a date?" "Marcus, it's perfect." "Yes. Yeah." As we reached the top, the whole city spread out beneath us in lights. Marcus kissed me. It was becoming easier for him, less tentative, more confident. I was learning what he liked. When I touched his hair, the way he made this small sound in the back of his throat when the kiss deepened. "I'm glad we're doing this," Marcus said when we broke apart, both of us slightly breathless. "Me too." "Are you sure?" he asked, and there was real vulnerability in his voice. "Are you sure you're okay with me figuring things out as we go, with the fact that I might screw up?" I took his face in my hands. "Marcus, I've been in love with you for 2 years. I'm not going anywhere just because you're learning. We're both learning." "But you've dated guys before, you know how this works." "I've been on dates," I corrected. "Bad dates mostly. I've never done this, dating someone who actually matters, dating my best friend. This is new for me too." That seemed to help. Marcus relaxed, leaning into me, and we spent the rest of the Ferris wheel ride just holding each other and watching the city turn beneath us. Dinner afterward was at a small Italian restaurant Marcus had apparently also Googled. We sat in a corner booth, sharing pasta and talking about everything except the fact that we were on a date, which somehow made it feel even more date-like. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said over tiramisu that we were sharing. "Always." "When did you know that you had feelings for me?" I thought about it. There wasn't one specific moment, it was gradual, but I guess I really understood it last year during finals week. "Do you remember that night we were both completely fried from studying and we took a break to walk around campus at like 2 a.m.? Marcus nodded. "We were walking and you were complaining about our media law professor and you were doing that thing where you gesture wildly when you're passionate about something. And I just remember thinking, I want to do this forever. Not just the walking or the complaining, but everything. I wanted every late-night study session, every bad movie marathon, every stupid argument about nothing. I wanted all of it with you forever." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I remember that night you were laughing at me. I was admiring you. There's a difference. Why didn't you say something then?" I shrugged. "Because I was terrified, because you're my best friend and the most important person in my life and I couldn't risk losing that. It felt safer to just keep it to myself." "But you weren't happy," Marcus said gently. "Sophia told me she said you were miserable." "Sophia has a big mouth. She cares about you, she's been texting me, giving me advice." "God help us both." Marcus laughed. "Most of it is actually good advice. She said I should be patient with myself, that figuring out your sexuality isn't something you rush." "She's right about that. She also said if I hurt you, she'll murder me." "That's also fair." We finished dinner and Marcus drove me home, and at my apartment door we kissed goodnight like actual boyfriends, which still felt surreal and wonderful. "Same time next week?" Marcus asked. "You're planning another date?" "I'm planning many dates, I have a list." "You made a list?" "Google suggested making a list." I kissed him again. "You're adorable." "I'm trying," Marcus said, and the earnestness in his voice made my chest tight. Our friend group found out about us the following week, in the most chaotic way possible. We'd all gathered at Jake's apartment for our regular Tuesday night hangout, a tradition that had started in our first year of grad school. Jake, who was in the journalism program, had an apartment with enough space for all of us to crowd into, and every Tuesday we'd meet up to watch bad TV, eat pizza, and procrastinate on our actual work. The group consisted of me, Marcus, Sophia, Jake, and two other people from our program, Casey, who was quiet and brilliant and always had the best commentary on reality TV, and Lynn, who was loud and opinionated and made excellent brownies. Marcus and I had arrived separately not because we were hiding anything but because we hadn't explicitly discussed how to announce this to everyone. We'd been texting all day, though, little messages that made me smile at inappropriate times. The evening was going normally. We were halfway through an episode of a dating show that was so ridiculous it had become appointment viewing, when Marcus, sitting next to me on the couch, casually put his arm around my shoulders. I froze. This was new public affection in front of our friends. Across the room I saw Sophia's head whip around, her eyes widened. Marcus seemed oblivious to the stir he'd caused, focused on the TV where two contestants were having a dramatic argument about whose turn it was to plan the date. "Oh my God," Sophia said loudly, pausing the TV. Everyone looked at her. "What?" Jake asked. Sophia was pointing at us, specifically at Marcus's arm around me. What is that?" Marcus looked confused. "What's what?" "Your arm on Adrian, explain." I could feel myself blushing. Marcus looked at me, then at Sophia, then at his arm like he'd just realized what he was doing. "Oh," he said, then seemingly making a decision, he tightened his arm around me slightly. "We're dating." The room exploded. Sophia screamed, literally screamed, then immediately started crying. I knew this would happen. Jake was laughing. "Finally, do you know how hard it's been watching you two dance around each other?" "Wait, what?" I said. "You knew." "Everyone knew," Casey said gently. "You two were not subtle." "We were extremely subtle." Lynn shook her head. "Adrian, you looked at him like he hung the moon. Marcus, you talked about Adrian constantly. You were the opposite of subtle." Marcus and I looked at each other. "Everyone knew?" Marcus asked. "Everyone knew," Sophia confirmed, having composed herself slightly. "But I'm so happy you finally figured it out. Tell me everything. When did this happen? How did this happen? Was it the coffee shop confession? Oh my God, that was the best disaster I've ever witnessed." "You caused that disaster," I reminded her. "And I'd do it again because look at you two now," she was beaming. "You're holding each other, you're dating. This is the best day of my life." The rest of the evening devolved into everyone demanding details, offering congratulations, and generally making us recount the entire story from multiple angles. It was embarrassing and overwhelming and also kind of wonderful. At one point, when the attention had finally shifted back to the TV show, Marcus leaned down and whispered, "Is this okay?" everyone knowing. I turned to look at him, his face close to mine, his arms still around me. "Yeah," I whispered back, "it's perfect." But not everything was perfect. About a month into officially dating, we hit our first real obstacle. Marcus's parents called. They FaceTimed him on a Wednesday evening while we were at his apartment studying. Well, studying. We were actually mostly just sitting close together on his couch, my legs draped over his lap, occasionally reading something from our textbooks and then getting distracted by kissing. When his phone rang and Mom flashed on the screen, Marcus's whole body tensed. "I should take this," he said, gently moving my legs and standing up. "Do you want me to go?" I asked, starting to gather my things. "No, stay, just be quiet." He answered the call and his mother's face filled the screen, a woman in her 50s with Marcus's same warm smile. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "I haven't heard from you in weeks. How's school?" Marcus launched into updates about his thesis, his classes, his advisor, normal parent-child conversation. I tried to make myself invisible on the couch, pretending to read but actually listening. "And how's Adrian?" his mother asked. Marcus glanced at me. "He's good, actually he's here right now." "Tell him I said hello." "I will." There was a pause and then his mother said, "You two spend a lot of time together. Are you sure you're not neglecting your other friends?" Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. "No, Mom, I have other friends." "And what about dating? Are you seeing anyone? You've been single for so long, honey. Your father and I were wondering if maybe you'd want us to set you up with someone." Your cousin Emma knows a lovely girl who just moved to Chicago. Mom, Marcus interrupted, I'm actually seeing someone. His mother's face lit up. Really, that's wonderful. What's her name? How did you meet? Marcus's eyes met mine across the room. I could see him struggling. We met in grad school, he said carefully. And come on, tell me about her. The moment stretched. Marcus looked at me and I could see the conflict on his face, the desire to be honest warring with the fear of his parents' reaction. She's really great, he said finally. We're taking things slow. My heart sank. Marcus talked to his mother for a few more minutes, deflecting questions about his mysterious girlfriend, and then ended the call. He set his phone down and didn't look at me. The silence was heavy. Marcus, I said quietly. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. I didn't know how to tell her, how to explain everything. So you lied. I didn't lie, You told her you're dating a woman. That's lying, Marcus. He finally looked at me and there was real distress in his eyes. My parents are traditional, Adrian, they're Catholic. They've made comments before about people like you, like us. People like us, I repeated. You know what I mean. Do I? Adrian, please, I'm not ready to tell them yet. Is that really so terrible? I stood up, gathering my things for real this time. No, it's not terrible, it's understandable, but it also hurts. I'm not ashamed of you. I know, I said, and I meant it. But you're also not proud enough to tell your parents the truth. And I get it, Marcus, I really do. Coming out is personal and complicated and you should do it on your timeline. But I've already been through this once with my own parents and I can't be someone's secret. You're not a secret, everyone else knows. Everyone except the people who matter most to you. Marcus looked stricken. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's how I feel. I headed for the door and Marcus followed me. Adrian, wait, please don't leave like this. I turned back. I'm not angry, Marcus, I need some space to think about this, about whether I can do this again. Do what again? Be with someone who's not ready to be out. I spent years being my parents' secret, the son they don't talk about, the part of their life they hide from their friends. I can't be that for you too. I'll tell them, Marcus said desperately. I will, I just need time. Take all the time you need, I said gently, but I need time too to figure out if I can wait. I left before he could respond, and I made it all the way to my apartment before I let myself cry. I didn't talk to Marcus for 3 days. It wasn't intentional silent treatment, I wasn't trying to punish him. I genuinely needed space to sort through my feelings, to figure out what I could and couldn't live with. Marcus respected that, though he sent one text each day. Day 1, I'm sorry, I love you, take all the time you need. Day 2, I'm still sorry, still love you, here when you're ready. Day 3, missing you, I understand if you need more time. The I love you had appeared so naturally in that first text that I almost missed it. We'd said those words to each other hundreds of times as friends. Love you, man, love you too, always casual, always platonic. But this felt different, this felt like more. I spent those 3 days talking to Sophia, who was supportive but firm in her advice. Look, she'd said over coffee on day 2, I get why you're hurt, you've been through this with your parents and it sucked, but Marcus isn't your parents. He's not rejecting you or hiding you because he's ashamed. He's navigating his own coming out and that's complicated. I know that, I'd said, but Soph, I've already spent so much of my life being invisible to the people who are supposed to love me. I can't do that in a relationship too. So tell him that, tell him what you need. What if what I need is something he can't give yet? Sophia had been quiet for a moment. Then you have to decide what's more important, being with Marcus or being with someone who's fully out. There's no wrong answer, Adrian, but you need to figure out what you can live with. On day 4 I texted Marcus. Me, can we talk in person? Marcus, yes please, when? Me, tonight, your place. Marcus, I'll be here. When I arrived at Marcus's apartment that evening, he opened the door looking exhausted. There were shadows under his eyes and his hair was messier than usual, a sign he'd been running his hands through it anxiously. Hi, he said. Hi. We stood awkwardly in the doorway for a moment before Marcus stepped back to let me in. His apartment was small, a one-bedroom that was somehow both meticulously organized and perpetually messy. Books everywhere, papers scattered across his desk, but everything somehow in its place. It smelled like the specific combination of his laundry detergent and the vanilla candle he kept on his coffee table. It smelled like home. We sat on his couch, the same couch where we'd spent countless hours watching TV, studying, talking. But now there was careful space between us. "I've been thinking," we both said simultaneously. That broke some of the tension. We both gave weak smiles. "You first," Marcus said. I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what I need from a relationship, from a partner, and I need honesty. I need to not be hidden. I've spent too much of my life being someone's secret shame." Marcus flinched. "You're not." "Let me finish," I said gently. "I know you're not ashamed of me. I know you're figuring things out with your sexuality and that coming out to your parents is huge and scary. I get all of that, but I also need you to understand where I'm coming from." "I do understand." "Do you?" I asked. "Do you understand what it's like to have your parents look at you differently once they know the truth, to watch them struggle to accept this fundamental part of who you are, to know that they love you but they also kind of wish you were different?" Marcus was quiet, his expression pained. "I came out to my parents when I was 20, I continued. "My mom cried, my dad didn't speak to me for 3 months. They've gotten better, sort of. They're polite now, tolerant, but they don't ask about my dating life. They don't want to meet anyone I'm seeing. I'm their son, but only the parts of me they can handle." "Adrian." "I'm not saying this for sympathy," I said. "I'm saying this so you understand why I can't be with someone who's not ready to be public about us. I've already lived that way with my family. I can't live that way with my partner too." Marcus nodded slowly. "I understand, and I'm sorry for lying to my mom, for making you feel like a secret." "So where does that leave us?" "It leaves us here," Marcus said, and suddenly his voice was stronger, more determined. "Because I've been thinking too, a lot, and I realized something." "What?" "I'm being a coward." I started to protest, but Marcus held up a hand. "No, I'm hiding behind the excuse that I'm not ready, that my parents are traditional, that it's complicated. But the truth is, those are all just excuses to avoid something scary, and in the process I'm hurting you, which is the last thing I want to do." "Marcus, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he interrupted. "Because here's what I realized over the past 3 days while you were giving me space to think. I don't want to be with anyone else. I don't want to hide this. I don't want to lie to my parents about who I'm dating. Yes, it's scary. Yes, they might react badly, but you're worth that fear. We're worth that fear." My heart was pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm going to tell them, my parents. I'm going to call them this weekend and tell them the truth. That I'm dating you, that I'm bisexual. I think I'm still figuring out labels, but that feels right for now, that this is serious and important to me." "You don't have to do this for me." "I'm not doing it for you," Marcus said firmly. "I'm doing it for me because I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions. And I'm tired of watching the person I love feel hurt because I'm too scared to be honest." "The person you love," I repeated softly. Marcus reached across the space between us and took my hand. "Yeah, the person I love. I said it in a text, but I should say it for real. I love you, Adrian, not just as my best friend though you are, but as my partner, as the person I want to build a life with." I was crying. When had I started crying? "I love you too," I managed, "so much." Marcus pulled me into a hug and I let myself be held, let myself believe that maybe this could actually work. "I'm still scared," Marcus admitted into my shoulder, "terrified actually." "That's okay, we can be scared together." "What if my parents react badly?" "Then we'll deal with it together." Marcus pulled back to look at me. "You really think we can do this?" "I think we can try, and trying is enough." He kissed me then, and it tasted like salt, from tears and hope and relief. When we broke apart, we were both smiling through our tears. "So," Marcus said, "want to stay for dinner? We can order Thai and watch something terrible on Netflix." "That sounds perfect." We ordered food, settled on the couch, no more careful space between us, and pulled up a dating show that Sophia had been insisting we watch. But halfway through the first episode, Marcus paused it. "Can I practice?" he asked. "Practice what?" "Telling my parents. Can I practice on you?" "Of course." Marcus took a deep breath, sitting up straighter, his hands clasped nervously in his lap. Mom, Dad, he started, I have something important to tell you. I'm dating someone and it's serious. His name is Adrian and he's my best friend. We've been together for about a month officially, but I've had feelings for him for longer than that. I know this might be surprising and I know it's not what you expected, but I need you to know that I'm happy. Happier than I've been in a long time, and I hope you can be happy for me too. He looked at me anxiously. How was that? That was perfect, I said honestly, clear, direct, honest. What if they ask questions I can't answer? Like what? Like, how do I know I'm really bisexual if I've only dated one guy? You don't have to have dated multiple people to know your sexuality, I said gently. You know what you feel, that's enough. What if they ask if it's a phase? Then you tell them it's not, that this is who you are. What if they don't believe me? I took his face in my hands. Then they're wrong and it's their loss, but Marcus, your parents love you, give them a chance to surprise you. Marcus nodded, still looking nervous but also determined. We spent the rest of the evening talking through various scenarios, me offering reassurance while Marcus worked through his anxiety. By the time I left late that night, we both felt more prepared. At the door, Marcus kissed me goodnight. Thank you, he said, for being patient with me, for not giving up on us. Always, I promised. The following Saturday, I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone, waiting. Marcus was supposed to call his parents at noon. It was now 12:47 p.m. and I hadn't heard anything. Sophia had texted me 6 times. Sophia, any news? Sophia, is he talking to them? Sophia, I'm freaking out on your behalf. Sophia, why are we not hearing anything? Sophia, Adrian update me. Sophia, if you don't respond, I'm coming over. I'd responded. Me, no news yet, I'll let you know when I hear something. At 1:15 p.m. my phone finally rang. Marcus. I answered immediately. How did it go? There was a long pause and my heart sank. Then Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion, they said they love me. Yes. They said they love me, he repeated, and I could hear that he was crying. They were surprised and my mom asked a lot of questions and my dad was really quiet at first. But then he said that he could tell from the way I was talking about you that I was happy and that's what mattered to them. I was crying now too. Marcus, that's amazing. My mom wants to meet you, she said. He laughed through his tears. She said she's been hearing about you for 3 years and she feels like she already knows you, but now she wants to meet the person who makes her son smile like that. I'd love to meet them. They want to come visit next month. Is that too soon? Is that overwhelming? That's perfect. Adrian, I did it. I actually did it. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. We talked for another hour, Marcus recounting every detail of the conversation with his parents. They'd asked questions, some of them clumsy, some of them revealing their lack of understanding about bisexuality, but all of them coming from a place of love and a genuine desire to understand. His mother had cried, but not from disappointment, from relief that Marcus had trusted them enough to be honest. His father had admitted that he'd suspected something, that the way Marcus talked about me had been different from how he'd talked about Jessica. They want to know everything about you, Marcus said. Your favorite foods, what you study, what you want to do after graduation. My mom's already planning a dinner for when they visit. I'm nervous already. Don't be, they're going to love you, how could they not? After we hung up, I texted Sophia. Me, his parents took it well, they want to meet me. Her response was immediate. Sophia, I'm screaming. Sophia, I told you it would work out. Sophia, you and Americus are endgame. Sophia, I'm coming over, we're celebrating. She showed up 20 minutes later with wine and Chinese takeout, and we spent the evening celebrating this small but significant victory. You know what this means, right? Sophia said, pouring us both generous glasses of wine. What? This is real now, like meeting the parents real, long-term relationship real. I smiled into my wine glass. Yeah, it is. Are you ready for that? I don't know, I admitted, but I want to try. That's all any of us can do, Sophia said, raising her glass. To trying, and to you and Marcus finally getting your shit together. We clinked glasses and I felt something settle in my chest, a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. This was real, this was happening, and for the first time I let myself fully believe that it might actually work out. Marcus's parents visited exactly 1 month later, and I spent the intervening weeks cycling through various states of anxiety. What if they hate me? I asked Marcus for approximately the 100th time. We were in his apartment and he was helping me pick out an outfit for the dinner his parents had planned. They're not going to hate you, Marcus said patiently. He held up 2 shirts, the blue one. The blue one makes me look washed out. The blue one makes you look good, trust me. I took the blue shirt, still spiraling. What if I say something stupid? What if I spill something on their nice clothes? What if? Marcus cut me off by kissing me. When he pulled back, he was smiling. You're spiraling, he said. I'm aware. My parents are going to love you because I love you, that's how it works. That's not actually how it works. It is in my family, Marcus insisted. My mom has been asking about you constantly. She wants to know what flowers you like. Apparently she's bringing you flowers. My dad asked what sports teams you follow so he can have talking points. They're trying, Adrian, they want to like you. That should have been reassuring, but it somehow made me more nervous. The dinner was planned for Saturday evening at a nice Italian restaurant downtown, neutral territory Marcus had suggested so nobody felt pressured. His parents were staying at a hotel nearby and would meet us there. Saturday arrived with anxiety-inducing inevitability. I changed outfits 4 times, showed up at Marcus's apartment an hour early, and had to be physically prevented from stress cleaning his already clean kitchen. You need to breathe, Marcus said, taking my hands. They're just people. They're your people, they're important. So are you. We arrived at the restaurant at exactly 7 p.m. I'd insisted on being punctual and Marcus's parents were already there, standing outside the entrance. I recognized them from the photos Marcus had shown me. His mother was petite with graying dark hair and Marcus's same warm eyes. His father was tall, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair and a reserved expression that reminded me of Marcus when he was thinking. Mom, Dad, Marcus said, hugging them both, this is Adrian. His mother turned to me with a smile that was so genuinely warm I felt some of my anxiety dissolve. Adrian, she said, pulling me into a hug before I could even extend my hand. It's so wonderful to finally meet you. I'm Rebecca and this is Richard. Richard extended his hand and I shook it, trying not to think about how sweaty my palms were. It's great to meet you both, I managed. We've heard so much about you, Rebecca said, linking her arm through mine as we walked into the restaurant. Marcus talks about you constantly. Adrian said this, Adrian thinks that. I told Richard we were essentially already best friends. I glanced back at Marcus, who was walking with his father, and he gave me an encouraging smile. Dinner started with the usual small talk. How was their drive? How was grad school going? Wasn't Chicago beautiful in the spring? But gradually, the conversation deepened. Rebecca wanted to know about my family, my background. My plans after graduation. She asked questions with genuine interest, listening intently to my answers, occasionally reaching over to touch my hand for emphasis when she agreed with something I said. Richard was quieter, but his questions were thoughtful. He asked about my thesis, my research interests, what drew me to media communications. When I mentioned my interest in documentary filmmaking, he lit up. Apparently he was an amateur photographer and we spent 20 minutes discussing visual storytelling. About halfway through dinner, after our entrees arrived, Rebecca said something that made my breath catch. Marcus told us that you two have been best friends for 3 years before you started dating, she said. That must make this both easier and harder. It's definitely both, I admitted. I think it's beautiful, Rebecca continued. Building a romantic relationship on that foundation of friendship, that's how Richard and I started. We were friends first, best friends, and I think that's why our marriage has lasted 30 years. Richard reached over and took his wife's hand, smiling at her with a tenderness that made my chest ache. The way Marcus talks about you, Rebecca said, turning back to me, reminds me of how Richard used to talk about me when we were young. Like you're the most interesting person in the world, like he can't quite believe his luck. I glanced at Marcus, who was blushing furiously. Mom, he said. It's true, Rebecca insisted. You should have heard him on the phone last week going on and on about some documentary you two watched and how Adrian had all these insights he'd never considered. It was a good documentary, Marcus muttered, still blushing. Rebecca turned back to me. I want you to know that we were surprised when Marcus told us he was dating a man, not because we're closed-minded but because Marcus had never mentioned being interested in men before. But Richard and we've always believed that love is love, and what matters to us is that Marcus is happy, and he's clearly, obviously happy with you. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just nodded. We'd like to get to know you better, Richard added, speaking up for the first time in a while. If you're comfortable with that, we know we're meeting you under somewhat unusual circumstances. I'd like that too, I said honestly. The rest of dinner flowed naturally. Rebecca told embarrassing stories about Marcus's childhood, much to his horror and my delight. Richard asked me about my own family, and I found myself being more honest than I'd planned about my complicated relationship with my parents. They're struggling with it, I admitted. With me being gay, they love me, I think, but they don't really understand, or maybe they don't want to understand. Rebecca's expression was sympathetic. I'm sorry, Adrian, that must be very difficult. It is, but I've learned to build my own family, friends like Sophia and Marcus, people who accept me completely. We accept you completely, Rebecca said firmly. You're important to our son, which makes you important to us, and from what we've seen tonight, you're a wonderful young man regardless of who you're dating. I had to blink back tears. Continue. 22:35. After dinner, we walked around downtown for a while, Rebecca continuing to ask questions and tell stories while Richard and Marcus walked slightly ahead, having their own conversation. At one point, Rebecca linked her arm through mine again and said quietly, "Thank you." For what? For making my son happy, for being patient with him while he figured things out. Marcus told me about the phone call, about how he initially lied to me. He was very upset with himself about that. He was navigating a difficult situation, I said. He was being a coward, Rebecca corrected gently. And he knows it, but he also told me that you helped him find the courage to be honest, not by demanding it but by being clear about what you needed. That takes strength. I didn't know what to say to that. I can see why Marcus loves you, Rebecca continued. You're kind, thoughtful, clearly intelligent, and the way you look at him, she smiled. You look at him the way Richard looks at me. How's that? Like he's home. The weekend visit ended Sunday afternoon with more hugs and promises to stay in touch. Rebecca insisted on exchanging phone numbers with me, claiming she wanted to be able to text me directly rather than always going through Marcus. After his parents left for the airport, Marcus and I went back to his apartment, both of us exhausted from the emotional intensity of the weekend. We collapsed on his couch, and I immediately curled into his side. So Marcus said, "That went well." I laughed. "That went incredibly well. Your parents are wonderful. They loved you." You think so? I know so. My mom texted me while we were saying goodbye. She said, and I quote, "He's perfect, don't screw this up." Solid advice. Marcus kissed the top of my head. I'm not planning on it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both of us processing the weekend. Thank you, Marcus said eventually. For what? For being amazing with my parents, for answering all their questions, for handling my mom's intensity. Your mom's intensity is endearing. She asked you approximately 400 questions. I counted, it was closer to 500. Marcus laughed, and I felt the vibration of it against my cheek. I love you, he said. I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you so much. I tilted my head up to look at him. I love you too. He kissed me slow and sweet, and for a moment everything else fell away. When we broke apart, Marcus said, "So your turn." My turn for what? To introduce me to your parents. My stomach clenched. Marcus, I don't know if that's a good idea. Why not? Because my parents aren't like your parents. They're not going to be warm and welcoming. They're going to be awkward and uncomfortable and probably rude. They're your family, Marcus said gently, and they're important to you even if the relationship is complicated. I want to meet them. I want to at least try. I sighed. You don't know what you're asking for. So tell me, help me understand. I sat up, pulling away slightly so I could look at him properly. My parents are immigrants from Taiwan, I started. They worked incredibly hard to build a life here to give me opportunities. They have very specific ideas about what success looks like, what a good life looks like, and being gay doesn't fit into that vision. Have they said that? Not in so many words, but when I came out, my mom cried for days. My dad stopped talking to me. When they finally did talk to me again, they asked if I was sure if I'd considered that this was just a phase. They've never asked about anyone I'm dating. They've never wanted to meet anyone. It's like that part of my life doesn't exist to them. Marcus was quiet, listening. I love them, I continued. But they've made it clear that they love the version of me that fits their expectations. The successful son who got into a good grad school who's going to have a respectable career. They don't love the gay son who's dating a man. You don't know that, Marcus said softly. They might surprise you. My parents don't do surprises, they do expectations. Then we'll manage their expectations together. Marcus took my hand. I'm not saying it'll be easy, I'm not saying they'll react the way my parents did, but Adrian, you deserve to have a partner who your family knows about, who they've at least met. Even if they're not ready to fully accept it, they should know that this part of your life exists. I wanted to argue, but I also knew he was right. Okay, I said finally, okay, I'll ask them. Yes. Yeah, but don't say I didn't warn you. Marcus kissed me again. Whatever happens, we face it together. I put off calling my parents for 2 weeks. Every time I picked up the phone, my nerve failed. I'd dial the first few digits, then stop, inventing excuses. They were probably busy. It was too late in the evening. I should wait until after my thesis deadline. Marcus was patient but firm. You don't have to call them today, he'd say, but you can't avoid it forever. Finally, on a Thursday evening, I forced myself to dial the full number. My mother answered on the third ring. Adrian, she said, her accent still thick despite 30 years in America. Why you no call for so long? Hi Mom, I've been busy with school. Always busy, you eat enough, you sleep enough. Yes Mom. You lie, you always lie about this. I smiled despite my nerves. This was familiar territory. We talked about school, about the weather, about my grandmother's health. She lived with my parents now in their house in the suburbs. Safe topics. Then I took a breath and said, Mom, I wanted to ask you something. Mwah. I'm seeing someone, it's serious, and I'd like you and Dad to meet him. The silence on the other end was deafening. Him, my mother said finally, not a question, a statement. Yes, his name is Marcus, he's in my grad program. We've been friends for 3 years and we've been dating for a few months now. More silence. Mom, your father won't like this. I know. Why you do this to us, Adrian? Why you cannot just find nice girl? I'd heard this before, but it still hurt, because that's not who I am, Mom, you know that. This is phase, you too young to know. I'm 24 and it's not a phase. I tried to explain this when I came out 6 years ago. My mother made a sound of frustration. You always so difficult. I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm trying to share my life with you. By making us meet this boy. His name is Marcus, I said, keeping my voice steady even as my hands shook. And yes, I'd like you to meet him, he's important to me. Another long pause. I have to talk to your father, my mother said finally. Okay. He will not be happy. I know. You make things very hard for us, Adrian. That stung more than I wanted to admit. I'm not trying to make things hard, I'm just trying to be honest. My mother sighed, a sound filled with disappointment. I call you back. She hung up before I could respond. I sat on my couch, staring at the phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Marcus came over an hour later. I'd texted him immediately after the call and found me still sitting in the same spot. Hey, he said gently, sitting down next to me, how did it go? About how I expected, I said. She said my dad won't like it. She asked why I can't just find a nice girl. She said I'm making things hard for them. Marcus put his arm around me, and I leaned into him. I'm sorry, he said. It's not your fault. I know, but I'm still sorry. That sounds really painful. It is what it is. That's a non-answer. I laughed without humor. I know, but what else am I supposed to say? My parents are homophobic and it breaks my heart, but I can't change them. That's too depressing. It's honest, Marcus said. We sat quietly for a while. Do you want to cancel, Marcus asked eventually, the meeting if it's going to be too hard? No, I interrupted. No, I want to do this. I need to do this. For me, I need to stop letting them pretend this part of my life doesn't exist. Okay, then we'll do it together. My mother called back 2 days later. Your father says okay, she said without preamble. Sunday dinner, 1 week you bring this boy. His name is Marcus, Mom. You bring Marcus, she corrected, but she said his name like it physically pained her. Thank you, what time? 5 o'clock, don't be late, and Adrian. Yes. Tell him to dress nice, respectful. I will. After we hung up, I immediately called Marcus. Sunday dinner, I said, next week 5 p.m. I could hear the smile in Marcus's voice. Okay, I'll be there. Marcus, you need to know what you're getting into. I know you've warned me extensively. I'm serious. My parents are going to be cold at best, hostile at worst. My dad might not even speak to you. My mom is going to ask invasive questions and probably say something offensive. My grandmother doesn't speak English, so she'll just stare at you and occasionally comment to my mother in Mandarin about how strange this all is. Okay. That's it, just okay. What do you want me to say? That I'm scared? I am. That I wish your parents were more accepting? I do. But Adrian, I'm not going to this dinner to win them over or to change their minds. I'm going because you need me there, and because no matter how they react, you deserve to have your partner acknowledged. God, I loved him. Okay, I said, Sunday, 5 p.m., don't say I didn't warn you. The week leading up to Sunday was a special kind of torture. I obsessed over every detail, what we should wear, what topics to avoid, how to handle it if my father said something awful. Marcus remained calm, which was both reassuring and slightly annoying. How are you so chill about this? I demanded on Saturday night. We were at my apartment and I was spiraling again. I'm not chill, Marcus said. I'm terrified, but spiraling won't help either of us, so I'm choosing to be practical. Practical how? I researched Taiwanese customs. I bought a hostess gift nice tea from that specialty shop downtown. I prepared some topics of conversation. I'm as ready as I can be. You researched Taiwanese customs? Of course I did. I want to be respectful. That shut down my spiraling immediately. You're perfect. I'm scared and trying to prepare. There's a difference. Sunday arrived with that same anxiety-inducing inevitability. We drove to my parents' house in the suburbs, Marcus driving because I was too nervous to focus on the road. Their house was in a nice neighborhood, the kind they'd worked their entire lives to afford. Neat lawn, 2-car garage, American dream achieved. We sat in the driveway for a full minute before either of us moved. Ready? Marcus asked. No, but let's do it anyway. We walked to the front door, Marcus carrying the tea, both of us dressed in the nice but not too formal outfits we'd agonized over. I rang the doorbell. My mother opened the door, her expression carefully neutral. Adrian, she said, then after a pause, Marcus. Mrs. Chen, Marcus said, bowing slightly and offering the tea. Thank you for inviting me to your home. I brought this for you. It's oolong tea from Taiwan. My mother took the tea, examining it critically. For a moment I thought she was going to reject it, but then she nodded. Very nice, come in. The house smelled like it always did, like the cooking my mother had been doing all day, some combination of garlic, soy sauce, and sesame oil. Despite everything, it smelled like home. My father was in the living room reading a newspaper. He looked up when we entered, his expression unreadable. Dad, I said, this is Marcus. Marcus, this is my father. Marcus extended his hand. My father looked at it for a long moment before finally shaking it. The handshake was brief, perfunctory. Nice to meet you, sir, Marcus said. My father grunted something that might have been agreement and went back to his newspaper. My grandmother was in her usual chair by the window, and when she saw us, she launched into rapid Mandarin directed at my mother. She wants to know who he is, my mother translated, though I'd understood perfectly. Tell her he's my boyfriend, I said in English deliberately. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, but she translated. My grandmother's response was a long stream of Mandarin that I also understood and wished I didn't. What did she say? Marcus whispered. You don't want to know. Dinner was set in their formal dining room, a space usually reserved for important occasions. I couldn't tell if this was a sign of respect or my mother's way of keeping everything stiffly formal. The meal itself was impressive. My mother had clearly spent all day cooking. There was braised pork belly, stir-fried vegetables, steamed fish, soup, rice, enough food for 8 people even though there were only 5 of us. We sat down, my parents at either end of the table, my grandmother to my mother's right, Marcus and I across from her. "Everything looks delicious, Mrs. Chen," Marcus said. "Thank you for going to so much trouble." "No trouble," my mother said, though we all knew that was a lie. The first 10 minutes of dinner passed in tense silence, broken only by my grandmother's occasional comments in Mandarin and the sounds of eating. Then my father spoke for the first time. "You study what?" he asked Marcus. "Media communications, sir, same as Adrian." "You have job lined up after graduation?" "I'm interviewing at several places. I'm hoping to go into documentary production." My father grunted. "Documentaries, no money in that." "Dad," I said warningly. "I'm just saying truth, documentaries, no money, Adrian knows this." "There's money if you're successful," Marcus said evenly, "and I'm willing to work hard." Working hard not enough, need to be practical. Adrian was always practical. The implication was clear, until he wasn't, until he chose this. "Actually," Marcus said, and I could hear the steel in his voice despite his polite tone, "I think Adrian is very practical. He's pursuing work he's passionate about while also being realistic about job prospects. He's smarter than anyone else I know." My mother made a small sound. My father's eyebrows rose slightly. "You know Adrian long time?" my father asked. 3 years, we met in grad school." "And you good friends?" "Best friends," Marcus confirmed, "and now more than that." The tension at the table ratcheted up several notches. My father set down his chopsticks. "You understand this very difficult for us, very difficult to accept." "I understand," Marcus said. "And I'm not asking you to be comfortable with it immediately, but I am asking you to respect that Adrian and I care about each other deeply." "Care," my father repeated, "this is just friendship." "No sir, it's love." The word hung in the air like a bomb. My mother stood up abruptly. "I get more rice." She disappeared into the kitchen even though there was plenty of rice on the table. My father stared at Marcus, his expression hard. "You very young, you don't know what love is." "With respect sir, I'm 25, I know what I feel." "You confused, both of you confused." "We're not confused," I said, finding my voice. "Dad, I know this is hard for you to understand, but I've been gay my entire life, that's not going to change, and Marcus," I looked at him, finding courage in his presence. "Marcus is the best thing that's ever happened to me, I love him and I need you to accept that." My father's jaw tightened. "You ask too much." "I'm asking you to acknowledge my life, to see me. Is that really too much?" Before my father could respond, my grandmother said something sharp in Mandarin. My father responded in the same language, his voice rising. Marcus looked at me confused. "What are they saying?" he whispered. I shook my head. "Nothing good." The argument between my father and grandmother continued for another minute before my mother returned from the kitchen. "Enough," she said firmly in Mandarin, then to us, "We finish eating." The rest of the meal was silent and miserable. We ate mechanically, no one looking at anyone else. When it was finally over, my mother started clearing plates. I stood to help and Marcus followed. In the kitchen, my mother said quietly, "Your father need time." "How much time, Mom? It's been 6 years. He is old, old people take longer." "That's not an excuse." My mother looked at me and for the first time I saw something other than disappointment in her eyes. Maybe sadness, maybe regret. "I know this hard for you," she said. "I know we not good parents for this, but Adrian, we love you, even if we don't understand." It wasn't acceptance, it wasn't even close, but it was something. "I love you too, Mom." She nodded, then looked at Marcus, who was standing awkwardly by the sink. "You take care of my son?" she asked him. "Yes ma'am, I will." "Make sure he never eat enough." Marcus smiled. "I'll make sure." My mother nodded again, then returned to the dishes. We left shortly after, both of us emotionally exhausted. My father didn't say goodbye, my grandmother pretended we weren't there. My mother walked us to the door and pressed a container of leftover food into my hands. For later, she said. In the car, neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, Marcus said, "Well, that was something." I laughed slightly hysterically. "I warned you." "You did, you absolutely did." He reached over and took my hand. "Are you okay?" "I don't know, ask me tomorrow." "Your mom was trying at the end there." "Yeah, she was, that's something I guess." "It's a start." We drove in silence for a while longer. "I meant what I said in there," Marcus said eventually. "I love you." "I love you too. And whatever happens with your parents, whether they come around or they don't, that doesn't change how I feel. You know that, right?" I squeezed his hand. "I know." Epilogue 1 year later. The thing about life is that it doesn't resolve neatly. There's no perfect ending where everything falls into place and everyone lives happily ever after. But there are small victories, quiet moments, progress. A year after that disastrous dinner at my parents' house, Marcus and I graduated with our master's degrees. The ceremony was in May, sunny and warm, and our entire friend group showed up to cheer obnoxiously when our names were called. Marcus's parents flew in for graduation. They took us out to dinner, asked about our job prospects, and treated me like family. My parents also attended. They sat separately from Marcus's parents, left immediately after the ceremony, and didn't stay for dinner. But they came, they were there, and afterward my mother texted me a single line, "Proud of you." It wasn't much, but it was something. Marcus and I moved in together that summer, finding a one-bedroom apartment in Logan Square with exposed brick and windows that let in actual sunlight. We adopted a cat that Marcus insisted on naming documentary, Emmy for short, and spent our first month arguing over furniture placement and learning each other's living habits. I got a job at a small production company doing research and editing. It wasn't exactly what I wanted long-term, but it was a foot in the door and the work was interesting. Marcus got hired at a documentary production studio, starting as a production assistant but with room to grow. We were poor, stressed, adjusting to post-grad life and full-time work. We argued sometimes about dishes, about money, about whose turn it was to clean the litter box. Normal couple stuff. But we also laughed every day. We still had movie nights on the couch, Emmy curled between us. We still texted each other stupid memes in the middle of the workday. We still knew each other better than anyone else. Sophia visited regularly, often showing up unannounced with wine and gossip. She'd taken a job at a PR firm and was thriving, but she still made time for us. "You two are disgustingly domestic," she'd say, watching us debate paint colors for the bathroom. "You love it," Marcus would respond. "I really do." My relationship with my parents remained complicated. They called sometimes, asked surface-level questions about my life. My mother started occasionally asking about Marcus, not in depth but small things. "How is Marcus? Is Marcus still working at that studio?" It wasn't acceptance, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was acknowledgement, and that mattered. On the 1-year anniversary of our first kiss, Marcus surprised me with a weekend trip to a cabin in Wisconsin. We spent 2 days hiking, reading, talking, and just being together without the noise of the city. On our last evening there, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Marcus said, "I've been thinking. About us, about the future." I looked at him, my heart picking up speed. "Yeah. I don't have a ring," Marcus said. "I'm not proposing, not yet, but I want you to know that I'm thinking about it, about forever with you." "Marcus, I know we're young, I know we're just starting our careers, I know there's still so much we need to figure out. But Adrian, when I think about my future, you're in every version of it, every single one." I was crying. When had I started crying? "I feel the same way," I managed. "I can't imagine my life without you." So we're on the same page. The exact same page. Marcus kissed me and it tasted like salt and sunlight and promise. "Someday," he said when we broke apart, "when we're ready, I'm going to ask you properly. And I'm going to say yes." We sat there as the sun set, holding each other, and I thought about how far we'd come. From that awful moment in the coffee shop when Marcus overheard everything to here, to this. It hadn't been easy. We'd stumbled, fought, cried, and struggled. We'd dealt with my parents' rejection and the complexities of Marcus figuring out his sexuality. We'd navigated the transition from friendship to romance and all the messiness that entailed. But we'd done it together. And we'd keep doing it together, through whatever came next. Because sometimes love isn't about perfect moments or grand gestures. Sometimes it's about choosing each other every day, about being honest even when it's scary, about building a life together brick by brick, moment by moment. Sometimes love is messy and complicated and requires more courage than you think you have. But it's worth it. God, it's worth it. I looked at Marcus, my best friend, my partner, my love, and smiled. I spoke too loud in that coffee shop, I said. Marcus laughed. Best accident of your life. Best accident of my life, I agreed. And I meant it. The end. If this story touched your heart, show your support by liking this video. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you.